Hey there, folks. This is Coach Rich with Endurance Nation. Thanks for tuning in to my weekly coach chat. Today is Tuesday, December 16th, and it's the holiday season here in the Strauss house. I got my assistant coach, Riley, who he's on strike this season. He's not wearing his little elf costume. Don't know why. Mrs. Coach Rich baked like 6 dozen gingerbread cookies, and they're right there. They're like right there. I've had like 5, but she doesn't know. But Patrick and I we're busy. We are rewriting our Ironman and half Ironman training plans. I just finished just a couple minutes ago. For our blog. My year 2 installment of our 3-year plan that I've been putting up via a blog and podcast over the last couple of weeks. This morning, I riffed on a podcast on a running form, but where my head's at right now is I'm getting hit with lots of season planning questions with our team. I am the season planning, big picture triathlon season roadmap coach, which is our athletes give us their race schedule for next year, and I schedule out how I want them to stack our training plans across their season, given what their race schedule is, right? So pretty much all I do all day long is look at people's race schedules and try to create for them the best training schedules based on their races. So it makes my job a lot easier if I share with you the lessons I've learned for how to schedule your races effectively, so that while you have your AAA race of Ironman Ironman Canada, you don't compromise that or sabotage that by scheduling not so smart races en route to it, or not scheduling any races at all en route to it, which is also a very bad idea. So because I'm writing my year 2 installment of my 3-year plan for their first year with us, our athletes, I kind of work with the race schedule that they have come up with on their own. But in year 2, I'm able to collaborate with them and have conversations like, given your 2014 schedule and the races that you had, and given what you want to race as your A race next year in 2015, how can we have an intelligent conversation about what races you can select en route to that 2015 A race, so that that race schedule is complementary to your A race goals. All right. So first consideration is you want to build your performance for next season on the excellent base of fitness that you've built in your past season. And this is largely about not jumping on the Ben & Jerry's short bus at the end of your 2014 season, for example, before you start training for your 2015 season. So we're kind of on the trailing edge of that, or calendar-wise. Again, December 16th, I'm on kind of like the trailing edge of that gap that typically exists in between the end of an athlete's season and the start of their season. So right now, I send my next crew of out-season athletes downrange on January 5th. And these are people who typically ended their seasons in early to mid-October through now, right? So we're talking, Ironman Florida, Ironman Arizona, Cozumel, some of the late season races. The conversations I've been having with them now is, how do I keep you rolling on the fitness bus rather than the Ben & Jerry's short bus? Maybe you get on that bus for a couple stops rather than getting a transfer and riding it all day long. How do I give you some time and some space to reset your head and reset your body, but in a manner where you don't wake up in January on January 5th, when I want you to start that out season, and we've lost a lot of those fitness gains that you worked so hard to build across your 2015 season. Okay, so the first step in planning effectively for 2015 is to plan things so that you have a minimal loss of fitness between the end of your 2015 season and between the end of your 2014 season and the end of your 2015 season. Okay. Now, you're going to look at your 2015 calendar, and I recommend that you split your season into 2 to 3 parts. So, Ironman athletes, if you have a full Ironman scheduled, let's say that it is Ironman Lake Placid, which is July 27th, 2015, you're going to split your season into 2 parts. The first half focusing on probably a half Ironman. My athletes, our regional target race for the Northeast region is Challenge Quasi, which is June 7th. And this race, for reasons I'll talk about here in a sec, we are recommending that our Ironman Lake Placid athletes that are in the Northeast race that race, and that is their first season target race. For Ironman Wisconsin, for example, and early May to mid June half Ironman. My point is, you've got for Ironman athletes, you have your AAA race, which is your Ironman, and then you have 1 or maybe 2 races that you're putting on the calendar en route to that race. Okay, half Ironman athletes, you typically have 2 to 3 half Ironmans, and one of those is like A minus, and then the second one might be an A, and your third race might be a A++, right? So you're going to split your season into 2 parts, and for each one of those 2 parts, for half Ironman athletes, you're going to back plan 8 to 10 weeks out, and Ironman athletes, you're going to back plan 12 to 14 weeks out. And so look at your calendar, and for Ironman Lake Placid, I can tell you that back planning 12 weeks out from Ironman Lake Placid leaves you with Monday, May 4th. And this is your It's On day. Okay. Ironman Wisconsin, your It's On day. Ironman Wisconsin athletes, 2015, your It's On day is June 22nd. Ironman Arizona athletes, your It's On day is the middle of August. And what your It's On day means is that is the day that you officially start training for your AAA race. Okay. It's the day on which you put your feet on the floor at 5:30 in the morning and say, I am now training for Ironman Wisconsin, Ironman Lake Placid. I've got my pointy Ironman training hat on that day. Up until then, you're doing 2 things. Number 1, you're keeping your training volume as low as you can for as long as you can. Okay. And second, you are minimizing your headspace, lifestyle, and the spousal approval unit costs or investments that you're making in your training. What I'm talking about here is putting your head in a space where you are not training for Ironman Lake Placid, Ironman Wisconsin. Okay. One of the most dangerous things you can do to yourself is to put your head in a space where you're waking up at 5:30 in the morning on January 5th, 2015, thinking that what you're doing today is training for Lake Placid, Wisconsin, Arizona, Florida, Louisville, Maryland. Okay. You only want to put your head in that space, and you only want to expose the other parts of your life, namely your family, to you in that space. You only want to do that for about 12 weeks. Okay. Up until then, your head is not in that space. so that you can save that headspace. You can save those spousal approval units. You can limit your lifestyle costs so that you can apply them closer to your race, beginning 12 weeks out, where they can do the most good for you. Okay. The reason why we want to keep your volume as low as we can for as long as we can is, first, because training volume is directly related to lifestyle, headspace, spousal approval unit costs being spent on your sport. And second, if I can keep your training volume low, I can keep your intensity high, and I can keep you focused on making yourself faster. Okay, our training paradigm is up until, for Ironman athletes, up until 12 weeks out from their Ironman, I want them training like, in their out season, I want them training like 5K, 10K half marathon runners and 40K time trial cyclists. I want them training like short course athletes. I want them training like half Ironman athletes, okay? So that, for example, that Ironman Wisconsin athlete who is not starting their Ironman training plan until June 22nd, they are racing, for example, like I'm racing Ironman St. George, which is May 3rd, okay? Up until then, you know, I'm training like a 5K, 10K half marathon runner right now. I'm training like a 40K time trial cyclist. I will wake up and put on my half Ironman hat about 8 to 10 weeks out from St. George, and I will train like a half Ironman athlete. And my only focus until May 3rd is Ironman St. George. And then after Ironman St. George, I still have another 5 to 6 weeks where I can do our Get Faster training plan, which is like an out season plus. It adds long bike, long run volume, includes swimming, but it's still not an Ironman training plan. Okay, I'm still keeping my volume low, my intensity high, so I can make myself much faster. And then on June 22nd, I wake up and I'm now officially training for Ironman Wisconsin. Volume goes up, intensity starts to come down, and I start building endurance, or I have been building endurance on top of my speed, but I am more focused on putting endurance on top of the speed that I built. Okay. So that it's on day for Ironman athletes happens 12 to 14, maybe 16 weeks out from their race. Half Ironman athletes 8 to 10, maybe 12 weeks out from their race. Okay. Within that first A race block, and again, you know, just for the rest of this video, I'm going to speak in terms of Ironman Wisconsin, because I got all those dates lined up in my head, right? I know when exactly things need to happen, but for those athletes, they en route to their first A race, and then maybe after their A race and en route to their Ironman, until they get about 7 weeks, 6 to 7, maybe 8 weeks out from their Ironman, I want them putting small intermediate goals on the calendar every 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, so that means the Thanksgiving Day turkey trot, the Christmas Eve 10K, the January half marathon, the February half marathon, the mid-March century, the April century, the first sprint race that might happen, you know, in the middle of April, Ironman St. George, my Tour of California training camp in the middle of May, a short course series that we have here with a race the middle of June. What I'm having my local Endurance Nation sleeper cells, some of whom are training with me for Madison. We're putting short-term goals on the calendar that let me have a short-term focus so I can create short-term accountability, which creates long-term improvements in my fitness, but at a much lower head cost, right? Where I get really nervous, and one of the big danger signs I see when I get new Endurance Nation athletes on the squad is they give me their schedule for next year. You know, they create their trial on December 15th, 2014, and their only race they have on the calendar is Ironman Florida 2015. And in their notes, they say, I have started training for Ironman Florida. Danger lights light up, and that's when I start to have a conversation about them setting short-term goals, which creates short-term accountability. You know, it's easy to be accountable in 4 to 6 to 8 week blocks. It's easy to focus on something that's only 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks away, rather than this big fuzzy goal that's way out there months and months and months. So that's what I like to see people doing en route to their first A race. And then bonus, if they can put other races or cool training events en route to their AAA race up until they get about 6 to 7 weeks out from that AAA race. And I'll talk about what that means in a sec, okay? What you've probably noticed is nowhere in this conversation have I said anything about training and racing marathons, okay? I've been at a lot of Ironmans. I've been at a lot of Ironman finish lines. I've even gotten back behind Ironman finish lines. And I have yet to see the Ironman volunteer with like the, did you do a half Ironman shirt on who's punching your ticket before you cross the, or did you do a marathon en route to your Ironman, okay? You successfully racing a marathon is by no means a prerequisite for you being successful at the Ironman or the half Ironman distance, okay? They are two completely different sports. And at some point, the act of you, the volume that is required for a successful marathon, at some point, usually 6 to 8 weeks out from your marathon, that running volume begins to preclude, come at the opportunity cost of you making yourself a faster triathlete, which is to say that at some point, the fact that you're running 5 days a week and you're putting up 40 to 50 miles of run volume, that means that I can't also make you a faster triathlete, i.e. a faster runner, a faster cyclist, and a faster swimmer. So on the front end, about 6 to 8 weeks out from your marathon, we have to start compromising the goal that you've given me, which is to make you a faster triathlete, okay? Then you race your marathon, and then after your marathon, we need to, again, compromise your triathlon training goals because you're so shelled from your marathon. And the net is a marathon punches about minimum of a hole that is a minimum of 3 weeks on the front end and 2 to 3 weeks on the back end, punches a marathon accommodation hole inside your triathlon training plan, and it comes at the cost of making you a faster triathlete. Also, training for and racing a marathon is a very significant head investment that you are making en route to an also very significant triathlon investment, i.e. the rest of your 2015 season, whether it's half Ironmans or Ironmans, right? So, so folks who, for example, schedule. So here's how it typically works. An athlete has a poor race in 2014. They had a poor run, and they say, obviously, instinctively, they say, the reason I didn't race, the reason I had a bad race was because I wasn't fit enough. That's not true. Most of the time, it's because of they didn't race well, race execution, but that's another video, that's another podcast. But we're conditioned in the sport to think that the solution to every problem is either fitness or throwing money at it, right? So if I didn't have a good race, it's because I didn't do something correct training wise or fitness wise. Therefore, I need to do more training. I need to do more. I will schedule and race a marathon, and that will make me a faster triathlete. No, it does not. Okay. So the net is, let's take that February marathon that you signed up for en route to Ironman, Wisconsin. Okay. That marathon that you're racing, let's call it February 22nd, means that I'm basically losing all of February to my stated job that you've given me, which is to make you a faster triathlete, because I have to get you focused on making you a better marathon runner so that you can have a successful marathon. So February is lost as an opportunity to make you a faster runner and a faster cyclist, and maybe work on your swimming form. And then on the back end, I typically lose about 2 weeks on the back end. So I've lost, as your triathlon coach, I've lost from February 1st to March 15th towards the job that you've given me towards making you a faster triathlete en route to Ironman Lake Placid. And in the process, you've also incurred a pretty significant mental cost, but you don't really feel it until June 1st, which is 3 weeks after I had you start our Ironman training plan, which you did on May 4th, when the volume starts increasing and you start getting in that Ironman training mode, and you start the mental cost that you incurred in your marathon in February starts to express itself with some burnout issues in June, right when I need you on your game, right? So we are not fans of our athletes racing marathons as a tool to make themselves better triathletes. Now, having said that, we get that you want to do something cool with your fitness. You've raced this marathon, you're racing it with your wife and your father-in-law. I get that. Okay. That is something that we can accommodate, and we work with our athletes with that. But if you ask Rich as triathlon coach to ask whether or not I should do a marathon with a goal towards making me a faster triathlete, I will say no, there are better ways. Maybe you kind of train for like a 70% of a marathon and you race a half marathon instead. Okay. Let's talk about several minutes ago. Remember how I said I like our athletes scheduling. I like our Ironman athletes to schedule races up until about 6 to 7, maybe 8 weeks out from their Ironman, and this gets me to where or should Ironman athletes schedule a half Ironman en route to an Ironman, and if yes, when is the best time to schedule that? First of all, what I'll see athletes do is schedule a half Ironman en route to an Ironman and say that they're going to use the half as an opportunity to rehearse their Ironman race plan. Okay. A half Ironman is an ineffective Ironman race rehearsal opportunity, and it's also very expensive. Let me explain why it's ineffective. The cycling effort at which you're going to ride 112 miles and then run a marathon afterwards, and and before you ride that 112 miles, you're also going to run 2.4 miles. So the cycling effort at which you're going to ride 112 miles after having swam 2.4 miles and before running a marathon, that is by definition a pretty easy cycling effort. Okay. Likewise, the marathon effort or the running pace that you're going to dial in so that you can run a marathon after having ridden 112 miles and swam 2.4 miles, that's a pretty easy run pace. And the net is doing those Ironman paces across a half Ironman distance. The distances aren't long enough for any pacing, nutrition, hydration, bike fit issues that you might be screwing up. The distances simply aren't long enough for them to express themselves. Okay, if you are screwing up your Ironman pace and your Ironman feeding plan, that typically won't express itself until around miles 70, 75, 80 of a race rehearsal and an Ironman race rehearsal bike. Okay, so a 56-mile bike done at Ironman pace is simply not long enough for you screwing up to have to express itself. Okay, likewise, running a half marathon at that Ironman pace after you having only ridden 56 miles at Ironman pace, after having swam 1.2 miles at Ironman pace, that isn't a long enough event for you to screw up your run. And the net is a half Ironman done at Ironman effort is an ineffective Ironman race rehearsal venue, Ironman race rehearsal opportunity, and it's also pretty expensive, right? You'll get a much better quality Ironman race rehearsal by simply rolling your own race rehearsal out of your local pool or out of your front door, right? So that said, we recommend that our Ironman athletes race half Ironmans en route to their Ironman because racing's fun, racing's cool, and a half Ironman distance race is a very legit event on your calendar, which creates great accountability with regards to you staying honest with your training. Okay, to put a goal on your calendar for June 17th that drives the swim frequency, the run frequency, the length of the long run, the length of your long bike, that gets you up out of bed, that drives that accountability train. From April through June, you develop those habits, and you just carry on with that when you start your Ironman training plan on June 22nd, for example. Okay, so we want them to race half Ironmans, but it's not required. But if they are going to race, I typically don't like them putting half Ironmans on the calendar closer than 6, 7, 8 weeks out. And that's because their real estate, the real estate in their training, real estate is all about location, 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 right? And the closer you get on your calendar to your Ironman, those training weeks become very, very expensive. They become extremely valuable beginning in about week 14 of our 20-week Ironman training plan. So beginning about week 7, 6 or 7 weeks out. Okay, we have our athletes do their first race rehearsal, and we have their first high volume training weekend scheduled for week 15 of their 20-week Ironman training plan. So 6 weeks out. Okay. So that is an extremely valuable weekend. Likewise, week 16 and 17. So their first race rehearsal is week 15. Final race rehearsal is in week 18, which means that week 16 and 17 are also very high value opportunities for them to maybe spend some of those spousal approval unit costs or spousal approval units that they've been hoarding all season. In week 15, 16, and 17, that's when they say, hey, honey, remember that time where I didn't do this and I did that instead, and I went shoe shopping with you, and I wrapped all the kids' Christmas presents, and I woke up at 4:30 in the morning so I could get my training done in visibility. Gee, it would be really nice if you gave me a hall pass to maybe ride an extra hour or put up a massive 3-day cycling weekend in week 16. Okay. So you racing a half Ironman inside that window comes at the lost opportunity cost of you not being able to maximize your Ironman specific training opportunities. Okay. I'm not saying it's a deal breaker, because racing's fun, and we get it. But like I said, your training weeks become very expensive. They become very valuable the closer that you get to your Ironman. For half Ironman athletes, their first race rehearsal is in week 14 or 15. Their final race rehearsal is in week 18. So races that happen inside that block before their half Ironman begin to have impacts on their half Ironman training. But most half Ironman athletes, if they're racing anything en route to a half, they'll be racing sprints and Olympics, and those are generally fine to mix in route to their half Ironmans. But the big weekend that I want them to avoid is week 18. That's their golden final race rehearsal. Do not pass go. Got to get this workout done. Same for Ironman athletes, right? My point across all this week 14 through week 20 conversation is that plussing up your training volume. One of the things that we've seen is that we've learned is training volume pops. Plussing up your training volume, if you can fit it in, that's much more valuable when you do it closer to your race rather than farther away from your race. So, for example, yesterday I did a triathlon season roadmap for Turby Wright. He's one of our rock stars, 60-64 age group, won his age group last year at Ironman and qualified for Ironman Kona. So I was doing his season roadmap yesterday, and he asked me about doing high volume cycling weeks in April and January en route to, he's racing Kona, and he's racing I think he's racing Eagleman and something else in July. And the conversation I had with him was that if you can fit those in, do them because they're cool things to do with your fitness. But don't expect a high volume pop that you do in April and or a high volume pop that you do in July to necessarily have a payoff on race day for Ironman Kona in the middle of October. It would be better, or maybe consider the possibility of taking those admin units, the headspace units, the spousal approval units that you might be spending in July, and spend those in September. Spend them in that week 16 and 17 of your Ironman training plan, because that will have the most benefit, the most impact for you on race day for an athlete racing Kona. Having said all that, at the end of the day, this is all just a game, and we are building. You're building a fitness vehicle that allows you to do cool stuff with your fitness, and putting high volume training events on the calendar is just fun to do, but it's important that you schedule them effectively. So, hopefully, folks, what I've gotten across. Let's see, what have I talked about in this 35-minute video, which I'm going to convert into a podcast, is just how are the opportunities you can create for your next season by scheduling. Okay, there's a lot of missed opportunity on the table that people miss out on by scheduling their AAA race, but then not thinking clearly or having a very well thought out plan about what races they are going to schedule en route to that AAA race. And how, if you do it right, you can have fun, you can conserve your headspace, you can conserve spousal approval units, you can keep your training volume low which lets you make yourself faster, you can have fun and not be all dorked out about your AAA race training. And you can have fun and enjoy yourself across a long arc of your 2015 season simply by being smart about what races you schedule, when you schedule them, and being honest with yourself about how much of your head you are going to be expending on this race and that race and that race. And am I better off holding that investment to later on in the year and applying that closer to my AAA race? Okay, so I'm convinced that someday I'm going to start up, Coach Rich's race selection consultation service, just because I see so many athletes sabotage their AAA race goals through ineffective, not so intelligent race scheduling en route to their AAA race. So, folks, I'm going to go inside and answer questions from my athletes in my chat room. So thanks for watching the video. Any questions for me? I got a handful of folks in here. Okay, folks, looks like a quiet night. 'Tis the holiday season. If you have any questions for me, Endurance Nation members, please start a forum thread for me, or you can start your own macro thread in the macro forum, and I'll answer them there. Folks in podcast land, in YouTube video land, in Google Plus video land, please give me your comments and questions in the comments section of the channel in which you are consuming this product. Or you can find us on Facebook at endurancenation.us/Facebook. And as long as I'm giving plugs, check us out at endurancenation.us and consider creating a free 7-day trial by visiting endurancenation.us/join. Thanks for watching, folks. Thanks for listening. I'll see you online.